let's talk about first my first experience in the car business, right? So I used to work as a granite fabricator, which is pretty much, people that make countertops for sinks or islands and things like that. I used to be a fabricator for that. And I worked at a company called American Stone in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, right? So worked there for about 2 or 3 years. That's when I decided to move to Florida, which is another story by itself. But long story short, I got a job here doing the same thing, right? And I used to work from like 6 a.m. to like 9 p.m. every single day. And it was like, I'm talking like sweatshop work, like it's not easy. Here it's better than up north because up north you're working with water and you're in the winter. So that's like a double, you know? But here it's just hard work because of the heat. So I did that for a while, and I used to profile or create these kitchens there as a laborer, and I started learning about how much they were sold for, right? And I'm like, wow, like I used to get paid a decent amount per job standards, right? It was like I think 18 an hour. That's what I made at the time. 18 an hour, which is not bad. It's not bad. You can pay stuff with 18 an hour, but there's much better out there. Um, and I did that for like 3 months while I was here, right? And then I'm very like connected to people in terms of like just self-respect, right? And one day I used to go to work, good employee, right? As per standards. And the owner walks in and I'm like, hey man, good morning. And then he just walked right by me. Like no acknowledgement of who I am whatsoever. And I'm like, wow, that sucked. And when that happened, I started thinking to myself, I'm like, let's do simple math, I guess, right? And I started learning about how much these kitchens that I was doing was being sold for, how much I was making it, even though I was creating that, right? And I decided to sort of try to figure out how can I become more valuable, right? So I thought about it. I'm like, it takes me about 6 hours to maybe create a small kitchen that they sell, I don't know, 3 to 6 grand. I don't know the numbers anymore. It might have changed now, but let's say $3,000 to $6,000, right? And it takes me 6 hours. Even if I got paid $25 an hour, that's such a like a very, very tiny little margin that I'm making, even though you're putting most of the effort in, right? So I decided to walk up to the manager's office, and I said hello, and he introduced himself. And I said, hey, like I'd like to talk to you. And he's like, what's up? And I told him, I'm like, I I was thinking about how this whole operation works. I was like, I'd either like to request you for a raise because of X, Y, and Z, right? That I explained what my thought was. And he started laughing, right? And he's like, how much do you want to get paid? And I looked at him and I said, $15. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, you already get $18 an hour. I'm like, no. I want to add $15 to my $18. And he started dying laughing, right? He just fucking rolled back and almost fell out of his chair. He's like, what? Are you crazy? So he looked at me. He's like, I got guys that have been here for 9 years and they've gotten maybe $2 raises, right? And I looked at him cold, bro, dead cold. And I was like, well, they don't know their worth. I do. And I just shut the fuck up. So he looked at me and he knew there was some sense behind that, right? So he's like, nah, man, I can't do that. I respect it, but I can't do it. I'm like, it's all right, man. I'm on to a better opportunity, so here's my 2 weeks notice. In 2 weeks, I'm going to come get my check, and I'm out. Dude, I had no money, right? I put my balls on the table there. I had no money. I was barely paying rent, right, at the time. Barely paying rent. I had just gotten a dog when we're not supposed to have a dog. So it's there's the recipe for disaster. That was my lifestyle at the time. So I quit. And I hopped on Craigslist. I started looking for jobs, right? And when I was trying to get my hands on anything I could get, right? Bartender, waiter, busser, whatever, right? Whatever came my way, I would do it for sure. I had to make money. So I came across this ad for a car dealership. And I'm like, sounds like a good idea, right? So I call up this guy. His name's Eddie, right? Great guy, hothead, but he's a great guy. And I said, hey man, like I'm looking for a job, but I'm gonna be honest with you, this is my situation, right? He's like, come on over. So, kind of got cramped a little bit. So he's like, come on over, and I'm like, sure. So I set up an appointment. I walk into the dealership. I'm like, hey, dude, mind you, I'm like the biggest introvert, right? I'm the type of person, like, if I'm in a room and I don't know the people in the room, like, I just won't talk to anybody. Because I look at people and I'm like, I don't know you. What the hell am I going to talk to you about? Right? That's my introvert personality. And never sold anything in my life, not even a pen, right? I mean, literally no sales experience. So he puts me through this little car course that I had to go through, which was great for basic information, right? But like a week goes by, I make no money. And I'm working like 9 a.m. to like 7 p.m. every single day. Second week goes by, I make no money. Third week goes by, I still make no money. And then I'm like starting to freak out, right? So I'm like, shoot, I've been doing this, morning to afternoon and I haven't made $1. Maybe this doesn't work, right? And then I'm like, shit. So I hop on my computer at work, right? At my sales desk inside the dealership. And I start opening all these Craigslist ads up and trying to see which opportunity I could grab to try to make some money, right? So whatever, day went on, day was done, I went home. And then the next day I got really sick. I don't know what happened. I just got a bad cold, right? I really was sick though, and I couldn't go to work. And I didn't go to work. He walks over to my desk and looks at the computer screen, and the computer screen has all these Craigslist ads for jobs open, right? So he automatically thought, he's like, this guy's trying to quit, He's looking for other jobs. And then I didn't come to work the next day, which automatically led him to believe what? That I was probably job hunting, right? And then the next day I come in and he like brings me in his room and he like fires me, right? He's pretty much fired me, right? Like last chance fire, And then he's like, look, you got to be loyal to the company and you need to just do your work and you'll do something here. And he's like, you know what? He looks at me, he goes, you're probably not going to be shit in life though. And I'm like, what? And then I'm like, he's like, yeah, like, because if for you to be a salesman, you got to be born with it in here, in your veins. And I took that to head, right? Obviously, that's the way I am. I'm analytical about shit. So I'm like, that makes no sense, right? So I'm like, fuck it. I went home that day, and literally from the time I got home, I think for like 12 or 16 hours straight, I researched every single link I could get my hands on as far as Google goes and other sources on how to sell a car, how to overcome objections, how to master the art of sales, right? I came across great people like Tom Hopkins, Steve Richards, all these great guys, right? That just sort of like let me watch them do what they do best, and I learned these key little principles that like you can structure any conversation, right? And once that happened, like this was so fresh in my mind because I went straight to work. Bro, I shit you not. I sold 8 cars back to back. 8 cars. And keep in mind that at the time, I think I was getting like maybe 200 a car, 250 a car, which there's much more room for money, right? And I was like, it didn't hit me until I got the check. Because this was like a Thursday, I think, and we got paid on Saturday. So like Thursday I sold the cars, Friday was a normal day, and then Saturday I got the check. And that was, what did I say? It was a 250, right? 250, what, 8 cars? Fucking suck at math, but calculator works. So that was $2,000, right? So like, fuck. Friday, Saturday, I get $2,000 in the palm of my hands. I'm like, what if I duplicate this about 30 times a month, right? And then I started learning and digging in and finding the idea behind that, like how it made that all work, right? I started like just getting better and better. But then it got to the point with like me and this guy's ego just started to collide, right? Like I would bring him deals and I'd be like, yo, this is how you send it to the bank. It's this, this, this. Like I knew what I was talking about. And he just, I mean, I guess for whatever reason, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but for whatever reason, he just didn't want me to like perform as well. And I hate it when people put a cap on me. Like you're not gonna grow anymore. You're gonna stay right there. Like yeah, right. So I left, and then I ended up being placed at another dealership, and applying the same principles I learned. I sold 14 cars in my first 2 weeks there. And that's when I saw that check, bro. That's when that shit lit a fire under my ass. It was like, okay, how do I become this? I started hanging out in the title clerk and being friends with them and learning what their process was like. I hung out in the finance department. Blue, come. Come, sit.
Yeah.
Sit down. Good boy. Who's your best? That's a good boy. Right. So then I started hanging out with like the title clerks, right? I hung out in finance. I hung out in the service department. And the good thing is that at the time I had already worked for a auto detailing shop a few years back, right? So I've learned how to properly recondition a car, right? That was part of the good knowledge, right? But that has nothing to do with selling cars. It was just about cleaning cars, which most people can do, right? But I started hanging out with all these people. I started learning from them. I started asking, about the processes and stuff like that. When customers would walk into the dealership, I would personally take on the headache just to learn how to solve it, so that I would learn what the process would be in case if this, then that, right, would happen, right? If a customer comes in and has an issue not getting the registration, how do I solve it? And dealership activities like that. And most managers, at most times, want to run from issues, right? I literally stepped in for the manager. I said, hey, let me help you out. I'll handle all the complaints. I'll bring you only the serious ones you need to figure out about. So then he, gave me sort of that right to assist him. And then through that, I started learning like, okay, if a person would come in with this issue, this is what we would do. And then it would go to titles, to servicing, to keys, to all these things that sort of like harvested this sort of framework that I've built, right? It's the experience of going through that. So once that happened, I got my hands involved in a lot of like financing. And then me and the finance manager there actually became good friends. And then we worked together again at another dealership, and me and him used to just crank out deals, dude. Like me and selling, and him with finance, we used to do by ourselves, just between me and him, 50 cars a month. 50 cars a month. That's a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, for a small store, right? Obviously, you got your bigger stores that does 100, 200, 300, but that's a different story, right? That's like franchise dealers and stuff like that, or big lots. But when you're running a small operation, like if you do like, I'd say even 30 cars for a small operation, like a family-owned, local, small operation, dude, you can easily be comfortable off 30 cars a month. Easily, right? So me and him just got working together. I would always pay attention to what he was doing, so I learned, like the way he would structure his deals, how he would get the stipulation from the client, like as far as the license and stuff like that. And then obviously comes dealer school, right? Dealer school, which is the certification for the state, teaches you a lot more. But I made that jump, right? And that's where I started Vox, right? I said, look, let me take all these things that I've learned through experience, right? Not through bullshit, not through theory, not through reading, right? Not through YouTube, Like, let me take all these things that I've learned the hard way, right? Because I've lost a lot of money doing it too, right? Just I took that walk, right? And carved the way per se. And now it's like it's so streamlined that I can get somebody on point and running fast, But I took that and I opened Vox. And for the first, I think, we opened Vox in 2017. For the first 2 years, I didn't sell anything. And I was still paying like $1,000. I think about $1,000. It was like more like $1,600 with utilities. So for like 2 years, I was paying like $1,600 to $1,800, fluctuating between that number for 2 years with no income before I even made a sale. Right? And what would I do to sort of cover that? I would clean cars. Back to skill number one, right? And I started cleaning cars just to be able to pay for the garage, right? And then after I got to the point where I got, like the videos that are coming up, where I got that I had a car and a little bit of money, then I took that car and flipped that car. You know what I'm saying? And I used the money I had to guarantee the place, and I got utterly fucked by a partner supposedly in the beginning who was never a partner. But I put the money I had to get started, right? The lease and licensing and stuff like that, and then I had my car, right? And that's the Eclipse. And the Eclipse became the BMW, and the Eclipse became, I think, the PT Cruiser and the Mercedes. Because I remember I picked up the Mercedes for under $5,000, and that was already like after 2 flips. So the Eclipse became the PT Cruiser, the Mercedes, and then another BMW came in. And then from there, we started sort of like playing around with like 6 or 7 cars, right? On and off, right? And that just sort of grew and grew and grew and keeps on growing, right? And to the point where, hopefully, like I said, the goal is just... Oh, yeah. Dude, what? In the beginning?
And get better margin on.
Yeah. Dude, in the beginning, I was getting fucked by 2 people. The mechanics and the auction. The auction would sell me shit, and then the mechanic would be expensive as fuck. That was my biggest problem. Right? So I had like smaller margins, but I always bought... And another thing, too, that I gotta say, though, is that I always buy cars that I believe in. I don't chase fucking unicorns. Right? Like, I always buy, like, if I see... I don't care what the make is, because with the things with cars is like this. You just have to know the common issues. Remember I told you about the BMW? The BMW has like the sticky door handle. It's common things you can look for, right? Because to you, if you know they're common, you know that it's commonly fixed, right? To other people that don't know they're common, they think it's damaged, which means they probably won't pay all the money that that car would ask for. Look at the Infiniti as a perfect example. We picked it up for $3,800 and we sold it for $9,000. And Brian is a perfect example of that because he said we would never sell that car, right? And it's about picking out these right cars. And I think we have them on camera too, if I'm not mistaken, saying that. We need to put that together. But it's things that, you know what I'm saying? Like, but it, like, let's dumb simplify it, right? We're like in a sort of like structure now, right? Which is good. But let's dumb simplify it, dude. One person, right? No help, no connections, no nothing. Let's take it back to the basics. Just you. Starting out, you know nothing. Just one person. If you do, say, 1 car, 2 cars per month, right? That means you technically have to work for 2 days, and you can be a fucking asshole for 28 and not do nothing. And let's say you just sell 2 cars in 2 days, right? Over the 30-day period. If you're making an average of $1,500 per car, that's $3,000. People are working the entire month for that, and maybe not even that, right? Because most people are fluctuating between $1,400 to like $1,800. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, imagine if you learn how to do 1 or twice a month. That's an extra $3,000 in your pocket. Now you could keep your job because it's comfortable, right? It's a side hustle, right? And the idea of like the goal for the person's life should be to make the side hustle match the full-time job, right? Because if you are now working for McDonald's, Walmart, whatever, and let's say you're making $450 every 2 weeks, right? A regular worker, and you stop to think about it, like 40 hours a week. Dude, in 3 hours you can find a car and buy it for $800 and literally wash it, do an oil change, make sure the safety equipment works, and flip it for $1,500. So you've crunched time from such a big waste to like this quick little short bursts of profit. Exactly. Exactly.
You can
So
choose what way.
once the income from the side hustle, right, as you said, matches your full-time job, you can make that decision, right? Because now you've noticed that you did it probably in less time than your actual full job takes. You've made more money than your actual full job makes, right? And you can literally drop all these hours, transfer this over, and not only have freedom of time, have freedom for your family, be able to do as you wish, be debt free, right?
With more cars and earn.
And that's what I'm saying, right? And if you're disciplined, right? Don't get me wrong. If you're disciplined, you can go out there and still screw yourself royally on anything you do if you're not disciplined, right? That's just a fact, right? A person can go out there, love can get you killed, right? If everything that's too much or too little, you gotta know the balance for that. You know what I mean? So it's like if you have access to say $500,000 worth of line of credit to buy cars, are you going to go buy a $350,000 car that you can't afford? That will break you, right? Or you can take, like the other day, remember we were even talking about it? I could take $10,000 and buy a $10,000 car, or I can take $10,000 and buy 10 $1,000 cars. That just 10x'd my chances of flipping one car for $1,500. 10,000 into 10 cars times $1,500. See, even if you went for $1,000 only in profit, which is easy to get. Which we have, right? You've seen the Mercedes, you've seen the Porsche, right? You've seen all these higher end cars that sit for an average of 45 to 60 days, right? Unless there's something special and people want it, you know? But cheaper cars, people will forever need transportation. Forever. Right? And as long as it can transport them from A to B faster and better and more efficient than what they're doing now, they will always buy because you're solving a problem. Right? That's why I tell people I don't sell cars, I sell transportation. You walk in, you hate sitting at the bus stop for 45 minutes a day melting under the sun, I got a car for you. You know? Don't expect the Rolls Royce, right? But know that you're going to get something decent. You know, it's better than what you're doing now. So you can walk in and want better than what you don't have. But yeah, man, you know, so it's simple as that. If you actually stop to think about it and you put two and two together, even if you did one car a month, if you flipped one car a month for $1,500, I mean, given that we have to say that some states only allow you a certain amount of cars, right? That's why you want to make a business out of it, right? But I think a person with no license can flip up to 3 cars a year. 3 flips a year done right can easily be an extra $15,000 in a person's pocket in income at the end of the year.